Oh, I'm recording. Good. What's going on, everybody? I wanted to do something today. I did a freaking video on this before, but I didn't actually walk. I didn't physically walk through it. I just talked about a big picture overall, and it's about closing costs. Right? I deal with this all the freaking time, and people call me pissed off, like the closing cost said this, right? And nobody really explains or expresses what closing costs are, how they work, or how to read the closing costs. So let's just break it down real quick. Hopefully this will clear it up. I know I could have used this video yesterday. I had somebody I was trying to really walk through. She wasn't using me for a loan. She actually found me online, watched a video. So who knows, maybe she'll watch this one. And she was looking for a one-time closed construction loan. She's already getting ready to write an offer. And she felt like the paperwork that this other bank had provided her was, too much. And even though, which a lot of lenders would have done, even though I could have been like, oh, well, I'll do your loan. Why don't you just do it with me? I could have done that. I don't do stuff like that. I says, look, why don't you walk me through what they're offering? And I'll tell you what I know. And what I did is I sat down and took the time to educate her. And once she was educated, she's like, so this is a pretty good loan. I says, yeah, it is. It's a very good loan. And I think you should stay with them. Honestly, right? It's just most people don't understand how it works. So they have, and unfortunately, a lot of lenders don't take the time to explain anything. They don't explain anything to the people that they're working with, which is frustrating to me. A good lender should be educating. They should be educating. The odds are good if you're looking to buy a house, which is probably why you found me on here. But maybe have never bought a house, or you buy a house once every 5 to 10 years. This is all we do every day. So it's easy for me to just assume, well, this is just what it is and you just do it. And I could do that, but it's kind of messed up. Anyway, so let's dive into it. Closing costs. So what are closing costs? I'm going to give you the big picture. All right. A lot of people think the lender, myself, somebody that's originating the loan, it makes you pay these closing costs like it's some type of a punishment or something, like, oh, you're just throwing in all these junk fees. No, closing costs aren't me at all. Closing costs are all about you. Okay? Closing costs are fees or services that you're going to pay for in order to get your home. And I'm going to explain some of that here in a second. But these aren't fees and services that I'm dictating unless it's in Section A of that disclosure. And that's the origination charges. And I'll talk about that because there's some dirty secrets. So I'll probably drop a couple dirty secrets here. So they aren't fees that I'm creating. Now, when you get the closing costs or an estimate on the closing costs, because typically how it starts is you're getting a pre-approval and somebody's going to give you an estimate. So I'll tell you what a good lender will do. I'll tell you what a dirty lender will do. All right. A good lender, they're going to, I don't want to say overestimate, but they're going to get at or above what the estimate should be. Here's why. We don't know what it's going to be. We can estimate, but a good lender is going to overestimate and say, hey, check it out. These other things could cost less, but we don't know because you, the borrower, have not picked these services yet, or somebody hasn't picked the services for you. And the somebody isn't me, with the exception of a couple things. And I'll explain that. So, that's where the estimate comes into play. A lot of people will look at that estimate and get really pissed off. It gives a very visceral reaction like, oh my gosh, $33,000 in cash to close. So cash to close is different than closing costs. Cash to close is down payment plus closing costs. That's called the total cash to close. But even if the closing costs were, like I pulled up a one that I just closed. Let's say the closing costs were $20,000 in closing costs. You got to look at what all of that entails. Okay, so let's break it down. In Section A, so when you go into escrow, so on a estimate, you're not going to see all this. They're just going to say estimated closing costs of $20,000. We're just going to wing it out there. Okay, we're going to create a number. But when you go into escrow, you're going to get your initial disclosures. Your initial disclosures are still running pretty loose because there's still stuff that hasn't been picked. But I think if you understand the sections, and it's page 2 of your 3-page what's called the loan estimate, the LE. But on page 2, it breaks down the closing cost details. So let's break it down. Section A is going to be the origination charges. So let's talk about origination charges. This is where if you're paying the originator, so I am a mortgage loan originator. I'm brokered with multiple banks, or if you go into a bank, they have somebody like me that works for that bank. So they originate loans for that bank. I happen to be in a brokerage that's brokered with a whole lot of banks. So I'm able to sit down and originate loans with multiple banks to meet your needs, right? So typically, the bank is going to be paying the mortgage loan originator to originate that loan for you and for the bank. However, in Section A, what you'll see is sometimes a lender will say, well, you're going to pay me. So you're the borrower, so you're going to do a borrower paid loan, and that means I'm originating it, and you're going to pay this origination fee. What you also see in there on occasion is going to be the processor fee, right? You're going to pay for the processor. The next area is services the borrower did not shop for, or services the borrower cannot choose, right? This is Section B. The appraisal. So the appraiser is the appraiser. So this is where a lot of people get pissed at me too. They're like, well, you picked this expensive appraiser. I didn't pick anybody. How it works, I wish I had more time because there's so much I want to explain here. Basically, when we're ready to request an appraisal, I request the appraisal from the underwriter. The underwriter goes out to what's called the AMC, and out of a pool of a bunch of appraisers, somebody is picked randomly, and they go out and do that appraisal. They want to remove that person from me as the mortgage loan originator. If you look back in the bad days before the crash, people like myself were buddies with appraisers, and they'd be like, hey man, even if it's not worth that, just hook me up. Well, can't do that anymore, right? It's very regulated, very controlled. So the appraisal fee is going to be estimated when the appraiser comes back. The appraiser will say, this is how much is owed. You don't get to pick the appraiser. I don't get to pick the appraiser. They're going to charge you that money and you pay it. That's part of your total closing costs. The credit report, same thing. You don't get to pick the credit report. You don't get to pick the flood certification. You don't get to pick the pest inspection if there's going to be one. There isn't always a pest inspection. Third-party processing fee, right? So the processor, like I had mentioned. But there's going to be stuff like that, okay? So that's in services you can't shop for. Services you can't shop for, Section C. Services you can't. Title, escrow, right? And that's going to entail quite a bit. That's the notary, that's the loan tie-in fee, that's lender title insurance, document storage and archives. So all that stuff, different carriers if carriers are needed, wire transfers, title endorsements, sub-escrow. So title and escrow are different things that you can pick and choose. Now, traditionally, the seller is going to write in there that they pick title and escrow, and most borrowers just say, sure, I'll go with whoever you want. Here's the thing, you don't have to. I even mentioned this on people that have VA loans or do VA loans. If you're a veteran, you can almost always go request from title and escrow to give you a veteran discount. If the agent on the sell side says, we want to pick the title and escrow company, if it were me, and if agents are watching this that are working with borrowers or buyers, say, hey, what are the name of those two companies? Because we're working with a veteran. I'm going to give them a call and find out if they will give a veteran discount. A lot of those companies will give up to 25% on a discount for title and escrow, which is a significant amount of money. It's a significant amount of money. You're looking at, I think title on this one, it was $11,000 for title and escrow. That's not cheap. That's not cheap at all. Or no, it was $4,000. $11,000 was in total for B and C plus A, right? So I would be asking those questions and trying to do that. Now let's go on to the next ones. E, taxes and other government fees. So here's another one. Taxes, especially in the state of California. We live in a broke state. California wants their money. So you got to pay taxes, right? You got the prepaids, which is going to be homeowners insurance. You do get to pick your homeowners insurance. Now, a good lender will sit there and give you a couple recommendations, but at the end of the day, it's your responsibility to pick out the homeowners insurance that you want to protect your house and provide that homeowners insurance and bind the policy to the loan. So the bank is also protected and you're protected as well. Next one, initial escrow payment at closing. So the homeowners insurance, this is going into G. So actually that's just a combination of the last two we were just talking about, but here's some other fees that you're looking at. Okay, so HOA, are there any HOA fees? The home warranty, natural hazard disclosures, the NHD that's always out there. That's always one that's kind of slid under the radar. That's picked by the seller's agent almost always. And then depending on who you're working with, are you as the borrower paying your real estate agent to provide a service to you? So all of that is going to be encompassed into your closing costs. Some of the services you pick, some of the services you don't, but at the end of the day, It's still services that were provided so you could close on your house and get it and move in. Therefore, you got to pay. People don't work for free. That's it. All I got on closing costs. I'll probably do a few more like this if people actually really like learning about some of the freaking paperwork, because the paperwork is a real pain in the butt. All right. Talk to y'all later. Have a good one.